Hello and welcome to the Turn 4 podcast. I am your host, Dan Maldonado. If this is your first time listening, welcome. If you're a regular listener, welcome back. This podcast comes from two lifelong fans of IndyCar and other forms of motorsport. I'm here tonight with my very trusty co-host, Tim Reiner. Hey, Timmy.
Hello, Daniel. How are you?
How are you? I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm good. Very good. Hey, I want to remind you before we get halfway through the show that you did hit the record button. I know you freak
excellent.
out.
Yeah.
We're good on that one.
Yeah. About 30 minutes into last week's 4-hour episode, I was in a full-blown panic attack thinking I didn't hit record, but thanks, Timmy, for helping me out with that. The last couple of episodes were kind of long, I guess, is what I've been told from our one of our executive producers. So we're going to try to shake things up a little bit because we do have two races to talk about. I don't know the best way to do it.
But so we're going to make it happen.
Picked out some points and we're going to talk about them.
Yeah. So just sit back and relax and listen.
That's all it is. Yep. Terrific couple of races at Iowa this weekend. It's funny, Tim, I wrote that comment last week before I even saw the races. So it begs the question right off the bat. Were they terrific races?
I'm not sure they were terrific by any means. I think you have one team that dominated for sure. When you look at laps led, they led almost 99% of the laps amongst the team. So a lot of passing, a lot of stuff going on. But yeah, I don't think it was terrific.
It was good.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
I'll give you good. I'll give you that it has a terrific crowd.
Seemed to be. Yeah, totally.
Looked like a terrific crowd. Yeah. I like that. So Newgarden sweeping the weekend, does that kind of flatten it for you a little bit? Is that the issue?
I think so. I think it comes to no surprise to many folks that watch IndyCar on a regular basis. This is what his fourth straight oval victory, fourth or fifth, whatever it might be. But
fifth.
He would have done it last year too if it wasn't for the failure on the suspension, I believe. But no surprise. No, I think I had him win one of them, but I couldn't.
You did,
pick him for both because that just didn't seem right. So,
and you have,
he led nearly 70% of the laps.
Yeah. Yep.
So just one guy. So when you say terrific, no, good. I think so. There's some action. There were some things going on.
I'd say they were good. Yeah, I'm with you there. I want to talk about. I think I have three major topics, right? So penalties, event, and then the race. And obviously we're going to spend the majority of our time in the race, but I got to talk about these penalties because we've a lot of people on Twitter talking about these penalties. So I'm just going to start with HyVee's penalty, which was a carryover from Toronto.
Which you didn't even think he was at fault. So this is probably a penalty that you're like, why are you getting nine penalty?
Which is the rule is written. Okay. Now I understand we live in kind of a quirky little time where rules don't really matter if you don't like them. So, but that's the rule is written, right? It's 9 spots on an oval. It's 6 spots on a street course or road course. He would have gotten 6 if he would have gone straight to Nashville. I'm going to use Jack's words though in this situation because Kevin Lee, I believe it was Kevin Lee on the NBC broadcast, said, "I'm not the one that took it 3 wide."
Yeah,
that was Jack's words. Can't argue with that. And like I said last week, Jack was ahead of Ryan Hunter-Reay. I think if Tom Blomqvist hadn't been in there 3 wide, I think that Hunter-Reay and Jack probably would have had a little bit of bumping and banging on the first lap, which is, inexcusable, but I think they'd have been okay. Right? Because these 12-year-old tanks that they race around in are generally pretty.
Normally you don't want to go 3 wide ever on a street course. So.
No. Lap 1 at the back. Come on. What are we doing?
I know. Yeah, I don't care for the penalty. I think it was just a racing incident. I don't think you put it on HyVee's shoulders, but the stewards saw it differently for sure.
Yeah. How about the indignation that Kirkwood was forced to suffer through in that because he missed the Friday weigh-in after practice, he wasn't allowed to take part in the 10-minute warm-up because the rule is written it's a 10-minute. You get docked 10 minutes of practice time on the next practice if you miss that weigh-in. It was only a 10-minute practice, so he missed morning warm-up, so to speak, on Sunday morning. Is that fair or harsh?
I think it's fair. Rules are rules. If you're going to go by the rule book and that's what it is, then you just lay it down. If you miss, how do you miss a weigh-in?
That's my thing, right? You and I, we always sit right in the beginning of the show when we start doing it. We're not insiders, blah blah blah. We're not, but we've been to enough IndyCar races and have observed how some of these things work. These guys are very well taken care of, right? They have handlers, they've got the PR people, their
Oh
communication
yeah,
staff or whatever
yeah,
that are getting them from place to place wherever they need to be. Seems to me it's kind of inexcusable.
yeah. I would agree. I think you need
Yeah,
to show up and do your job. That's part of your job. But
right. Two additional penalties here, but they were being called disqualified, which I thought was an interesting word choice because in my time of watching IndyCar since 1989, I don't remember a lot of disqualified being used out there, and it
I
was
don't
it was
either.
used twice um, in this weekend. So the first one I will talk about is Stingray Robb. He was disqualified from the event after the wheel came off. It's different than the wheels coming off. After the wheel came off after his pit stop, right? That wheel went onto the
The
track,
track,
and
yeah.
by the grace of God, that thing did not make contact with anybody. Nobody made
Hmm.
contact with it. Did not make its way into the stands, which surely would have possibly been a situation. Disqualified for the event. What? How do you see that? Tell me what you think, and then just tell me what you think about that whole situation.
Well, I think you have to be pretty harsh in that situation because the team knew that the wheel was not on, the nut was going down the pit road. So
Yeah,
in that situation, you got to tell your driver to immediately stop. You don't go
stop.
out on the track. Yeah, you got to
Yep.
stop and you got to wheel him back and then put the nut on and then send him out. So I think it's squarely on the team's shoulders. I think the penalty is what it should be, right? Because you can never have an unsafe release like that, where you put the fans, the drivers, everybody in at
Yeah,
risk. So
volunteers, everybody's at a
yeah.
very it's already risky now, and it
Hmm.
just it raises the risk level exponentially, which is I keep using this word, inexcusable. That's today's word.
Yeah,
I
it's
agree with you.
unacceptable. You can't do it.
Yeah. Yep. I,
And I think it sends them. It's about sending a message to the paddock, like that we're serious about this.
yeah.
Don't ever let a car go on the track when you know the nut's not on it.
Yeah, when you know that wheel is not secure, you need to do everything you can to stop that driver. I don't know, like you said, right? I I do these notes, I send them out to you, you look at them before we do this show, but we don't necessarily talk a lot about this because we save it for the recording, right? So it always feels
Do it
spontaneous.
for the show. Yeah.
But you and I are 100% aligned. That is 100% of what I feel and my feeling in this situation and why disqualified makes sense
Hmm.
because they knew, they saw it, we saw that wheel nut go
Everybody. Yeah.
rolling down pit road, right?
Yeah.
You didn't stop him.
Yeah. It's a bad call by the team for sure.
Bad call by the team. Kind of surprising too, because Dale Coyne's not a new team at all,
No.
right?
Mm-mm.
They're there's some veteran people on that team. So this and
Yeah.
Dale is a veteran in itself. So kind of unusual to me. Benjamin Peterson disqualified from the event, unable to maintain a minimum safe speed. That's what I wrote. Let me see what IndyCar wrote. Failure to participate at competitive speed.
Oh,
Fair, unfair?
I think it's fair. You're on a tight, short oval, right? And people are coming up on each other real quick. If you can't maintain a minimum speed, then I guess you need to get off the track. So I think I'm sure they gave him some time to figure it out, the team some time, and said, all
He
right,
was lapped 15 down
yeah,
before they parked him.
yeah. So you're just at that point, you're just a rolling chicane and you're in the way, and it's time
Yep.
to sit it out.
Yep. Totally
So
agree.
that one doesn't bother me either.
Not me neither. None of these bother me. Well, except for the
Well,
Harvey one.
Harvey's
The Harvey one
bother.
bothers me still.
Yeah.
I don't. I think that's ill advised. But none of these bother me. Right? Get to the weigh-in, dude. I've never even known that this penalty was a situation. We've been doing this podcast now. This is our third year. We started our third year doing this podcast.
Yeah.
We've never in the 75 episodes now that we're doing. This is the first time we've ever heard of that.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Totally.
Disqualified from the event for the wheel coming off. Totally justified. Black flag from the event because couldn't maintain the speed. That's not unusual, Tim. Back in the day, they used to do that. F1 used to do that too. They had like a
Yep.
105 rule or something, right? You had to be within 5% of the leader or whatever it
Yep.
was. So
Something
there's
like that.
rules there. So
Maybe there's not enough ovals, so we haven't seen these penalties come up. Harvey's is different, but the other
yeah,
ones, maybe it has to do with the ovals, right? And the wheel coming off. Maybe that doesn't have to do with one, but that's where you see those situations really escalate and get out of control.
yeah,
But maintain proper minimum speed. Yeah.
yeah. From an event standpoint, I think the crowd looked fantastic, right? We kept getting those great helicopter views with a lot of cars in the parking lot. There was a lot of people out there. It looked
There
really
were
good,
some pockets though of empty seats, but I think people were
and that's
taking
okay.
shelter and trying to find
Yeah,
some shade and things of that sort. But there were some pockets.
yeah,
Would have liked
yeah.
to see it just a little bit fuller, but that's just me.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with it. We don't have an oval event out there that looks like this, right? I don't know that Gateway even looks this full.
I guess we'll see. A
Yeah,
few
we'll
weeks.
see.
We'll see.
Um, looks good to me. I mean, I joke all the time, right? I'm a soda pop salesman. You're a software salesman, right? We're not marketing people. I think, right? Your degree's in marketing, though, right?
It sure is. Yeah.
Mine's in management. But so trial and frequency, right? But what I love about this particular trial, right, with all these concerts and bringing people in, and because I kept seeing that on social media too. Oh, these people aren't here for the race; they're here for the concert. Who cares? Hey, they paid for their own trial, right? It wasn't like IndyCar had to pass out free tickets or bring people in using some kind of gimmick. They got a concert. That's not a gimmick. These were top names. These weren't like cover bands, right? This wasn't a bar band that came in or a wedding singer that came in and say these were top names 2 years in a row. So hey, the people that came in paid for their own trial, and who knows, maybe it'll induce some frequency, and that's the point of it, right? If you convert some of those folks, even just a small percentage, who cares? Who cares? Big deal,
I agree.
right?
Yeah.
You get them to tune in next week.
Yeah, you got to attract new viewers.
Yeah.
So for sure, if they're going to come and look at the concerts and they bought a ticket, as you mentioned, they're there. It's exciting. I think until you go and see it in person, which a lot of people haven't, you don't realize what goes on at one of these events and how quick they go and how exciting it can be. In a short oval like we were on, I feel like it can become confusing of who's winning and where everything is, because you have to be sort of an avid fan to know all the drivers. And then I guess you could look at the scoreboard and go, oh, it's this number, but people they're moving so fast. It's hard to do that. So I'm thinking back to MIS days when we used to go and it would go on and on and on. And you're like, okay, where's first, where's second? How are you keeping track of everybody? So I can see that being some confusion for the folks that showed up and weren't race fans at all. But at the end of the day, they got to experience what IndyCar is all about, which is raw speed and competition.
Yeah, I think I'm a fan. I'm a fan of what HyVee does here. I know Penske Entertainment, because we were told Penske Entertainment puts in a good amount of effort in helping this event as well. HyVee, and they talked to the HyVee leadership team that was there, of course, and they talked about they have more volunteers of their store staff than they could actually use, which is phenomenal, right? I mean, awesome. I don't know that you have that level of activation and participation at the track anywhere else that you see here, right? I mean, using Detroit, which is our backyard, we've been to Detroit a couple of times now. We've been to Detroit a couple of times now as press, right? And I think Chevy does a nice job of branding in the city and everything else, but that's the kind of stuff we don't really know or we don't really see, right? Is General Motors, is Chevy division, how much volunteering do they have going on that's helping with this race or helping to put on this race? And what are they doing to activate around? We think the Detroit event was a great event. I'm not saying it isn't. But that's one of those things where when you look at the signage, the visibility, all of the different brands that were represented on track. I mean, PepsiCo had a huge sponsorship presence there with Frito-Lay and Pepsi and everything. Dr. Pepper was on the track. There was a lot going on there. So it's a wonderful activation. The leadership team from HyVee was saying all the right things, including the event sticking around and that they were working on it. And they were working on acts for next year already. This thing
Yeah,
goes on and on, right? This isn't something that just
yeah,
comes together in 3 months,
that's absolutely right.
right? Planning for next
Yeah.
year starts today.
Yeah,
So
and you
if it
had
hadn't started
concerns
already.
that HyVee was maybe way too far over their skis and maybe this
Yeah.
wasn't the right event and maybe we need to back out. And now it seems like they're in it for the long haul, which is great to see. And I agree, like the signage there was amazing, the suites were amazing, the paint on the track, like they had it
Hmm.
all decked out like it was a big event and it was a big deal and it was a big deal and it is a
It
big
is a
deal.
big
And
deal. Yeah.
to bring all those concerts in too and have those people and have new
Yep.
people checking out IndyCar, it's really good for the series as a whole.
Yeah. It's expensive to put these things on. So I'm sure that it's a pretty sizable investment on the part of HyVee. Not only are they a primary sponsor on Lundgaard's car, they have been for right a couple of years now with Rahal Letterman on as a primary sponsor, plus what they're doing at Iowa. So, maybe we can forgive them a little bit for what we have been told, right? Avid listener,
Yeah.
Evan tells us that no outside food or drinks were allowed
Yeah.
in the venue. So
Which we
I
talked
was,
about, right? Remember we
yeah,
talked
Evan
about
Dawson.
that? We talked about
Yeah.
that at Cleveland way back in the day.
Right. And Toronto last week, right? When we were in Toronto last week, you
Yeah.
couldn't bring anything in. So Evan Dawson, regular listener, shout out to Evan. Thanks for always listening. But, I asked him, I said, how's the food? And he's like, 8 out of 10. And
That's
he
pretty
said from
good.
what he could see, prices were, quote, fair. So that's good because let's
Yeah.
face it, you can't bring food or beverages into Comerica Park where the Tigers play. You get to go in there and you're going to get yourself a
Oh yeah.
Aquafina for what, $6-7 and a bag of peanuts for 6-7
Oh
bucks.
yeah. Same amount. Yeah.
That you could pick up at the speedway on your way in for $4 for both,
Hmm.
so so at least they're not gouging you. They know they got you. At least they're not gouging you. I mean,
Yeah.
all that stuff is pretty profitable anyway. I mean,
Yeah. And I guess if that's the way it's always been there, then it's no big deal to fans that are going there. Like you can't bring your food or drinks in. Like if you go to
right.
other events that we go to, you can bring whatever you want in.
Yeah.
So it's a little different. You think of the Indy 500, you can just bring your cooler and do your thing. So if you set the precedent to start, I think it's fine. And if you put prices where it's fair, that makes sense. And then if the food's good, which 8 out of 10, it seems pretty good to me.
Seems pretty good to me. Seems pretty good. Not 10 out of 10 like Road America, but
Oh
yeah,
well.
we're tired of hearing about Road America. From a race standpoint, I thought the race was good. I think we both agree on that. One piece I can't get past is why over the course of 2 days this is an identical event.
It wasn't
Right?
last year though.
No, it wasn't. The
It was a
distances were
300 and
different
a
last year.
250, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So
Oh,
they changed it up.
yeah.
And I heard some complaints it was too short, things of that sort. But watching two races 2 days in a row, it's commitment, right? So
Mhm.
to have them at 250 doesn't bother me at all. I think the race distance is long enough. Um, when I think I looked at it with commercial, like it was like an hour and 40 minutes, or not even that, an hour
Yeah.
and 30, something like that
It was buzzing
was
by
the
pretty
race.
good. Yeah. They had a nice
Yeah.
window. They had a good window on Sunday. They had a nice pre-race for about 30 minutes, and then they had about 30 minutes of post-race as well. So coverage
Mhm.
on Sunday was a little better than it was on Saturday, which is fine. But maybe you make Saturday's race a little longer. And then,
Yeah, I think you
you know,
should change it up a
yeah,
little bit
yeah. And here's
because
the
then you're
thing.
doing the same strategies, same
Yep.
pitch strat, like none of that changes because
Your car's good. Your car's good.
yeah, and it's an
Right.
identical number of laps. So you're not worried
Yep.
about do we pit now, do we pit later, how long are the tires going to last in this race versus the other, and can we extend those pit windows out? So I agree you should lengthen one of them, and I think it's either Saturday or Sunday. I think Sunday's probably the main event, so I think
Right.
that one would be, in my personal opinion, maybe a little longer, but maybe not.
One during the day, one at night.
I like that idea. Why
Yeah.
not? They have lights, right? I couldn't really tell from where I
I think
was,
so.
but
It was a night race at one point, so
so
that wouldn't be anything new. Um,
I think it's tough though if it's a Saturday night race and then you're trying to run Sunday afternoon. If something
yeah,
happens, you got a lot of cars that got to turn and you got guys that got to work all night. So I think logistically that could be difficult. And I don't think you want to take it to a Friday night event and a Sunday afternoon. I think
right.
that's maybe too big of a gap.
The night piece is a little harder, especially if you're really dedicated to these concerts, right? So
Yeah,
having the
to have the
acts
concert
there
after the
afterward,
race.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it'd be a
But
little
it'd be
harder.
nice if it went into dusk, right? And
Mhm.
the track changed, right? So it's not the same conditions both days, because
It's
then you
9
might
o'clock
have,
though, dusk. You figure, right? It's got to be close to 9 o'clock.
yeah,
Still
it's
this
pretty
time
late.
of
But
season, yeah.
yeah, so if you get people out of there by 11:30 the latest, I guess that could work. But if you're going to dusk, then you have track changes, and I think
Mhm.
cars are going to operate differently. So maybe you wouldn't have the same winner in both races, just because some cars are going to operate well when it's hot out and others when it's cooling off. So
Didn't
things to
Texas,
consider.
yeah, didn't Texas Motor Speedway do a thing? Several, I'm seeing Dario Franchitti in my head, so it's been a while. But didn't Texas do something where they
Yeah,
pulled
I
their
thought,
starting position out of a hat, so to speak?
oh, I don't know
Like
about
rather than
that.
do qualifying, they pulled their starting position out of a hat.
Did
I
it
thought
rain the
that
day before?
no, I don't think so. I think it was part of the shtick. Like I think
It
this was
was
the
like
part of the event. Yeah,
the wild card.
yeah.
Well, the thing
Rest
is, if you
assured,
got a good
we're
car,
gonna
you can
get told
pass.
what
So I don't think
happened
it
there.
really
Yeah,
matters where you qualify.
shouldn't. But on an oval,
So
anything could happen,
anything can
right?
happen. And if your car goes off, you're going to the back. If your car comes in, then you're going to the front. It's just the way it works.
Yeah.
I don't like the idea of pulling that out of the hat. That just doesn't seem right to me. I
Oh, I
think
do.
you've got to
I
earn the
really do.
pull,
No, I
because you
really
think of
do.
what Power did, right? Earning
Yeah.
both pulls. That's great.
6970. Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Um, our friend Spencer at IndyCar1909.com suggests that those measures that I just mentioned, not the one pulling the out of the hat, really wouldn't be enough to stop Newgarden, right? He thinks Penske's got the key to this place, and Newgarden definitely has the alarm code to the place. So I
Yeah.
think he suggested a repave, which kind of cracked me up because I was like, nah. And then all of a sudden, right, Colton Herta mentions it in the post race yesterday. Maybe we need a repave. I was like, oh no, couldn't get to the phone fast enough
Yeah.
before Spencer was basically, I told you.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I don't think it's one of those things where you go to that drastic measure of repaving it. I think,
Extreme, yeah.
yeah, I don't think you need to do that. I think you just need to change it up a little bit, change the distance, maybe do one going into the evening hours so the car's handled differently. And I think it it might affect Newgarden a little bit. I kind of disagree with you guys.
Yeah. I think you got to do something. Change up the aero package, maybe. Right.
No, I like the aero
Um,
package because there's a lot of passing. It's a lot of, I like that you're up through the gearbox, you're down through the gearbox, you're not just flat out all the way around. I think it brings a element of pure racing, right? It's more like you've got to have the setup, plus you got to have a driver who's understands the track and can get
yeah.
around it and can understand where traffic's going to go based on their experience and get around those cars as well. So I don't think you mess with the arrow. I think the arrow's fine. I think maybe you just put a parachute on Newgarden's vehicle.
Just let
Something.
them start 2 laps down. Right.
There you go.
Let's see how it
You
goes.
gotta work your way through.
Yeah. So talking a little bit about the race, I want to start with the race darlings from Toronto, who also happen to be the title sponsors um, at this track as well. So starting with Lundgaard, he had a better average finish of the RLL squad with an average of 16 and a half over the 2 days. Jack was 18 and a half. Graham really had a rough go at it. Had a crash on Saturday. He said it was the worst car he'd ever driven on an oval. I'm starting here, Tim,
Yeah,
because
yeah. Way to pump up your team. Say, hey,
yeah.
he
Oh
he
yeah,
just
yeah. Don't no. That's for the other show. Remember, that's for the goodbye show. So don't get me started. Um, Tim, is this better, worse, or as expected for Rahal Letterman Lanigan?
For me, it's as expected. I
Okay.
didn't see anything else coming out of this team here on the oval. Remember, they were terrible at Indy. They don't have a good oval package. They're still trying to figure it out. So for me, it's and they were terrible at Texas too, right? So
Yeah.
from my perspective, this is what I had anticipated. And I think I said this weekend is kind of, we're really not sure where RLL is. And I'm not putting anything on this race. I want to see what happens come Nashville and the other road and street courses as we move forward. So that's what I
Yeah.
want to see, if the team's really evolved and done their thing. So as expected for me, what about you, Dan? I'm
A little
curious.
better, to be honest with you, a little better because they were so bad. at Indianapolis. And they were nowhere to be found in Texas. I really didn't think that they were going to have much for this thing at all. Um, Graham finished
Yeah.
dead last because of his accident, but honestly, I mean, finishing dead last on merit really would have been kind of the expectation. I think that they did. I think they did better than at least I expected them to do.
Oh,
I think
interesting.
they're showing signs of a slight turnaround. I think this small oval package, because this is the only one you're going to do. I think you have two super speedways, Texas and Indianapolis, and Indy is the one that everybody's going for. I think that's where you devote the resources on
Mm-hmm.
getting ovals together. I think the
Mm-hmm.
rest of it is road and street, and they've certainly look like they're sorting that out. So
Yeah.
to me, I think that I think it's a little bit better. So before we get to Penske, and we got a lot to talk about there because they dominated this weekend. Everybody else kind of almost stayed home. Tell me who surprised you from the weekend and from whatever perspective, right? Good, bad, or otherwise.
Yeah, from my side of it, I was really surprised that Foyt Racing was as
Oh,
terrible as they were.
yeah,
Um, I had Santino doing some stuff in these races, and I thought
she
with what
did.
they
Dark
came out
horse.
of Indy that I was thinking they would be better than the back of the field, which they ran all day long, and some got disqualified because they couldn't even keep the minimum speed. So that surprised me. The other surprise, my surprises are all on the downside of it, right? The other side of that is Ed Carpenter Racing. I expected a little more out of them. Ed was there a little bit in race two, as my understanding. He was up in the field kind of midway, but it just didn't work out for that team. And that sort of, I was surprised, I guess. And looking at who might have surprised me was Little Dave, right? Little Dave
Hmm.
seemed to get the car together and was able to do some things. So from my perspective, it's like, oh, okay. So those are the three that sort of stood out to me. Andretti was average as I anticipated, right? I didn't expect them to go and win the whole thing and do a bunch
Yeah,
of crazy stuff. But yeah,
Maluk.
you?
Yeah, Malukas was 12 and eighth.
Yeah,
For so
that's solid.
it's solid because that team has struggled too. Not to the degree
Hmm.
that Rahal has, but I mean that team has really struggled. They don't seem to have an identity this year, um, as they haven't had in the past, which is
Yeah.
kind of surprising. And that's kind of what I think has spurred this situation where Malukas has already made it known we're not re-signing with Coin next year.
Hmm.
So he's
Yeah.
actively shopping his
Yeah.
services elsewhere.
Yeah, for sure.
For me, I got a couple of things. So for me, the first one is, and I'm wearing the shirt. I expected Aaron McLaren to have been the one that really would have made a very serious challenge to Penske. I think that Chevy has an edge over Honda in this department, in this just raw horsepower department, and I think that Aaron McLaren, they have very well sorted cars, and I think that they would have been unloaded very well, ready to go. And they have three very established oval racers.
Hmm.
Award has
Yeah,
won
for
on this
sure.
track. Award has always, right, the last couple of years with Indy has
Yeah.
shown, tremendous effort
He
there.
was on, yeah, he was on the
Rossi,
podium.
yep,
Yeah.
yep, yeah, he was on a podium. Rossi, Rosenquist has a pole at Texas. So I don't know how you can, kind of argue with what you're looking for there. I mean, they have a pretty good average. I'm wearing Rosenquist jersey, by the way. For the podcast listeners, I'm wearing Rosenquist jersey. Pato third and 10th, Rosenquist 13th and 4th. He drove up from 16th. Yay, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
And that could
Rosenquist.
have easily been a podium too if it wasn't
Yeah,
pushed out of the
easily
way.
been a. He was kind of chopped by our dear Kirkwood.
Hmm.
But Rossi, average finish at 12 and a half. So and here so Rossi finished 10th and 15th, race 1 2. He started 20th and 18th. So that first race he was much better, was able to come through the field, just kind of missed it a little bit on the second. Maybe they went a little bit more aggressive, thinking that they were gonna, get up to the front, or maybe they were putting something on there because even Pato's car wasn't as good on day two as it was in day one. So
Yeah.
he was scary loose, man. I thought for sure he was going to cause
Yeah.
a yellow, but
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised at Arrow.
You know,
I
I think Penske just elevated their game. I think
Mhm.
I think Arrow McLaren was kind of where they were last year, and it was pretty good last year, and they obviously got the one win when Newgarden went out, but they weren't going to win that one either. But
Yeah, without him. Yeah.
yeah, so I think they sort of stayed the same, and I think Penske elevated. So I guess I wasn't surprised by what Arrow did. It was good to see your mention of Chevy, right? Because I think
Yeah.
Chevy does have the advantage when it comes to the ovals here. So they were up front quite a bit, all the Chevy drivers. So especially Team Penske. But anyway,
Yeah. I'll give you a second. I have a couple more here too. So second one is quickly Grosjean. Grosjean finished, right? He was all over the shop in Texas, according to Scott Dixon. He has crashed out on his own all over the place. He's wrecky right now, Tim. He's wrecky.
yeah.
But he finished both races, 11th and 12th. Dude, it's a finish, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he looked happy. He looked happy in that post-race interview yesterday on Sunday during the post-race there. He has not looked like that in weeks.
Yeah.
So,
well, when the wheel slips out of your hand, that's a problem.
Time and time again. Yeah.
Yeah. So at least, he finished 12th and 11th, as you mentioned. And so I guess that's good. Andretti's overall didn't have it. So the whole team didn't. So I guess it is what it is at that point. So you bring it home with a car that is probably a 12th place car, right?
Yeah.
If it was any better, he'd be up there.
Yeah. Third, Ganassi, the 3 full timers. I'm gonna leave Sato out of this one because let's face it, Sato has not performed at the level that we expected when we knew that Sato was coming into this oval program. Average finish for Palou, Dixon, and Ericsson. Average finish for Palou, Dixon, and Ericsson, Tim. 6, 6, 6.5.
Oh, wow.
Talk about consistency, right?
Very consistent, yeah.
9th and 3rd. Dixon finished 6th in both races. Ericsson was 4th and 9th.
Wow. Yeah, I was a little surprised that Palou was up as far as he was. I thought he'd be...
Luck, right? Good strategy, held on, and he lucked out of that one.
Yeah, so I was surprised to see it. I didn't expect it. And their cars were good, right? They weren't great, but they were good, and the guys know how to drive them, right? They're smart drivers. They're not going to get themselves into trouble. It was good watching Marcus Ericsson do some high line passing. That was always fun to see. So he's really getting the groove of oval racing and knows oval racing really well now, it seems, after being in the series several years. So yeah, it's amazing the stats there that they're all average 6th place. So
perfect segue, Tim. The broadcast talked a lot about Newgarden sweeping these events and it keeps him in the chase for the championship. You buying that? I'm not.
Well, he's in the chase, but he's not. I don't think he's ever. You got to have something there, right? You got to think like, hey, it's come down from.
Got to be a reason to tune in next
100
week.
and some now to 80 points. So,
right.
In that perspective, you got to keep the interest, but I don't think there's any way. It's almost like, I spent 3 weeks watching the Tour de France, and it's always like, oh, there's a chance. Like when there's a 7-minute lead, there's no way that the GC is going to change. So, I kind of see it like that. There's no way the overall points leader is going to lose this at this point in the series.
Yeah, 80 points. 80 points separate first and second, Palou and Newgarden. Here's the deal. They have an equal number of wins. 4 and 4.
Wow.
Yet one is 80 points ahead. Almost unheard of.
It tells you about consistency, right? And how
sure
important
does.
that is. Yep.
And
that's when you don't win, you finish third. On a track, you're not really supposed to do much anyways.
Can't finish third, finish 4th.
Yeah.
Right? So make the most out of everything you got. Toward the end of the post-race yesterday, NBC had this terrific graphic, and it showed the points scored in the final 5 races last year between Palou, Newgarden, and Dixon. And Palou had scored 151 points. Remember, he only had 1 win on the season last year, and it was at Laguna, so that includes that. Newgarden had 175 points, and Dixon had 152, right? Outscored his teammate by 1. Dixon had the win at Toronto. I don't know if that's probably not in this. Even if that stays true, Tim, if that stays consistent through the balance of this season, and I don't think it will, Pelot still wins by 56 points.
Yeah,
Right?
for sure.
That's my meathead math. Somebody can correct me. That's fine. But that's my meathead math on that.
But if those
I
are the if
Go
those are
ahead.
the points in this situation,
Right.
Pelot's situation last year was so much different.
So much different.
So he is
So
going to
much different.
score way more than the 151 you just mentioned in
I
the
believe
last
that.
5
Yeah.
races, whatever's left.
Yeah. I believe that. I believe he has at least one more win in him and 2 or 3 more podiums, if not wins. I mean, I think that he's got that in him at through the balance of the season. Newgarden has not shown that level of consistency. Dixon certainly does, but Dixon's way out of it at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
With I have it, of course. Dixon is 120 points behind, so it's kind of tall, for a tall order for Dixon to get there.
Yeah, for sure.
It's really down to Pelot and Newgarden. Everybody else is racing for second and third.
Mm-hmm.
I think is where we're at. I agree with you though. I think that it's a different situation this year than it was for Pelot last year with the contract
completely,
thing.
Completely.
Right, kind of being boxed out of with the setups and being able to access setups online and things like that. I think he was a little bit in the doghouse is what I'm going to say. It's the words I'm saying.
Totally.
So, yep. Oh, we got to do it. We got to talk about Penske.
Well, if you're a Penske fan, it's a great weekend, right?
I am. I
know.
mean,
don't you have
I
the,
am,
the
so
plate?
I do have the plate, the Team Penske license plate frame.
Yeah.
IndyCar1909.com, our friend Spencer, starts his race recap in this way. For the first time in 42 years, a driver has completed a weekend sweep of an oval doubleheader. Josef Newgarden worked his way up from 7th and won for the 6th time at Iowa Speedway, finishing 0.705 of a second ahead of pole winner and teammate Will Power to win the HyVee one-step 250, the second 1-2 finish in as many days for Team Penske. Newgarden led 212 of 250 laps, all of which were in the final 220 lap span. This is Newgarden's 29th career victory, tying him with Rick Mears. Think about that.
That's impressive.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Mears was the last driver to complete a doubleheader sweep on an oval, which was Atlanta Motor Speedway in 1981. We were 6. Before today, the last driver to sweep a doubleheader weekend was Graham Rahal. I remember that weekend in 2017. That was the kit cars, right, with all the tricked out pieces.
I remember.
Saw Jan Beekes in the airport the day after that race. We were getting on the same plane.
About that. Yep. Yeah.
I don't know where we were going, but we were getting on the same plane. Newgarden has key to this track.
Considered the oval master, right? Wasn't
he? Was.
Yep. Yeah. So what does this do for Newgarden?
He's an oval master, but inconsistent elsewhere.
Yeah, it's amazing that you've swept all oval events this year. It's crazy. It's
a helpful like, red and a helpful yellow in these two.
Yeah. And as I mentioned earlier, he led 70% on nearly 70% of all laps.
Yeah.
At Iowa this weekend. So that's between 2 races, which is crazy. It's a great summary of what's going on. That's the stuff you find on IndyCar 1909 that you don't find elsewhere. That's really cool. So folks need to go and read that stuff.
Spencer does a nice job keeping that stuff updated. Tim, the thing that I think is really crazy is that McLaughlin and Power have access to Joseph's data. It's all open book. They see how he's doing, what he's doing, his setup, how the car is running, everything. They got it.
No. And I was expecting a podium sweep at one point during these races. I was like, Penske's going to
for Penske? 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, and they just didn't. I know that would have been the icing on the cake to take all 3 spots. But I think what I heard and what I saw was that Newgarden was really good in just understanding where traffic was going to go, which allowed him to make passes quicker on lap cars and, cars about ready to go down on the lap, all that stuff. And so he was just better at it. And then maybe it was just a little more of, I'm comfortable here, right? And I can take the car that extra little bit and not fear that it's going to, go loose on me and I'm going to wreck this thing.
Yeah. Power picked up career poles 69 and 70 at Iowa. You can see on Will Power's face that those stats mean something to him, right? That's special.
Yeah, they mean a lot.
It's special. Yeah.
And I think it's one of those, he's humble, right? He's like, that never expected,
He's humbled
right?
by that,
So that's
for sure. Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. He's the undisputed king of qualifying in IndyCar. He has the record. And he continues to add to this record. After Toronto, you and I had talked about that Penske was just missing a little something in qualifying. And I logged into the media session that IndyCar had with Will Power last week ahead of this Iowa race. It was Will giving us the preview for the race, and logged into that. And it's funny because Will said it, right? That qualifying's just been a little bit of a mess this year. Yeah. So it's interesting. So I think that this qualifying for this track to me is the track, right? And the fact that Will is really great at that one lap, even though it's two, but in that qualifying effort, I think that nobody's better than Will. Obviously, we just said that. Is that what this is, Tim? Or do you think that Penske is putting effort now into qualifying?
Oh, I think it's just, they're so good here. Like they just have the setup. I don't think they did anything different than what they've been doing. Especially here at Iowa and at the other tracks. I think they talked about, they were looking at long-term setups and things of that sort. So they were, that's maybe why some of their qualifying was off, but here it's just raw speed for the 2 laps in order to get, qualified for both races here. So, yeah, I don't think they did anything. They just came out and put their setups on from last year and it worked out.
Yeah. If you remember in race 2, Will Power was held up a little bit. He pitted at the same time, just ahead of Marcus Ericsson. Ericsson was coming into his pit stall as Will was getting ready to leave. So Will got held up a few seconds, let's call it, right? Will thinks that had he not been held up in that situation, he might have been able to take the victory from McLaughlin or from Newgarden. It pains me to say, because I'm a huge Will Power fan. I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't know either. I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, Newgarden is just way too good.
To quote a dear friend of mine, I don't know. McLaughlin finished 2nd and 5th. I don't think he was hanging his head on these finishes, but it goes to show you how high the expectations are. I don't think he should hang his head on these finishes, right? Because I think that's a great finish, but there was just something there that you could tell in some of his interviews that, yeah, I'm happy, but
he wants to beat his bus bro.
Of course
totally.
he does. Yeah.
And it sounds like they've been trading information. So Newgarden was helping him along of what he needs to do on these ovals. And he almost got him on the first race.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. I don't think we can get away from this. I didn't include this in the penalty segment here because it's not a penalty, but all over social media since yesterday's checkered flag is, I don't know why IndyCar didn't go red flag there. I don't know why IndyCar didn't open the pits there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know, Tim. I would have, I don't know that I wanted to see a yellow there or a red flag there. I don't know that there was enough time to
it doesn't
pit.
belong.
I mean, McLaughlin was talking about pitting, right? He was, hey, I'm, whatever his words were, he was not happy with his car, right? The worst he would have done was 5th.
So all the cars that were on the lead lap, that's it.
So, do you take that chance or do you just stay on track? That's the thing that it kind of puzzles me a little bit, is those that were still on the lead lap, right? In race 2, you had a chance. Power, Palou, Felix, Scott Dixon, you had a chance. Well, Dixon wasn't.
No, Dixon was done with that.
So if he'd have stopped, maybe it would have made a difference. If he'd have stopped, maybe it wouldn't have.
Yeah.
He would have been able to take traffic because he would have had brand new Firestones.
Dan, as you know, I am not a fan of red flags.
No.
You run the race, you do your thing. Yep. Indy was a mess with 3 red flags, which is
at the end.
I think one of them was needed. The rest of them,
yeah,
no. You don't ever
Yeah.
throw the red unless you really have to, unless there's unsafe conditions on the track.
Yeah, I agree with you there, 100%, 100%. Also, what I don't believe is out there, which I've seen on social media, right, is well, of course Roger Penske's gonna make it happen for his boy up front, right? And it's like I don't put an ounce of stock in the notion that Roger Penske's sitting in some office somewhere with a corded red phone directly to race control. Do not throw that red flag.
Yeah,
Right?
there's no
There's
way.
no way. There
Mm-hmm.
is no, because you know what? You know what's the best way to create another breakaway series? That,
Yeah, for sure.
right?
There would be people boycotting
Yeah.
and leaving
And
immediately.
where does Penske go at that point? Right? Because he's the one
Mm-hmm.
he's always got a chair whenever the
Mm-hmm.
music stops. He had a chair when Cart was going down the tube and IRL was hanging in there. He had a chair in IRL,
Mm-hmm. For sure.
right? Create a breakaway series now. Where does he go? Nowhere. How do you get people
Mm-hmm.
back? You don't.
Yep.
And as we saw, and I'm going to make a weird judgment, a leap here, right? As we saw with IMSA, Honda takes that stuff very seriously. And Honda's not making money racing an IndyCar.
Yep.
So if they think that the field is not level, why would you stay here?
Yeah. They would bail immediately,
See ya, dude.
take
Right?
resources elsewhere.
Yep.
He crippled in the series. Totally crippled him.
Yeah, totally crippled. Nashville next up. Sounds like it's the final race on the track as is. The Titans are building a new stadium, so that's going to impact
Mm-hmm.
the track layout. I know that they have a plan for what that's going to look like. What it's going to look like, I have no idea. Tim, part of my
Are you
job
okay with
requires me
that?
to go to Nashville on a regular occasion. I don't know how you do it. It's trafficy. It's busy.
Oh yeah. Super busy.
Yeah. Am
A
I
lot
okay
of
with
people,
it?
ton of
Yeah.
yeah.
You know what I'm okay with? You're going to be shocked to hear. Let's go to the Oval.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm all right with it.
Hmm.
Let's do a nice festival, in Nashville, kind of celebrating IndyCar being there. Thursday night, Friday night, do the demonstrations, do this pit contest on the streets somewhere, have it really good and put the race in the Oval. I'm fine with that.
Hmm. Yeah,
I'm fine
no,
with
I
that.
like the street course for sure. So I
Yeah.
don't know if I'm a fan of that going to the oval, but yeah, you could do it for
Yeah.
sure.
How about this? Nashville, possibly the site of next year's finale. And going forward, Nashville
I did see
would be the
that. That's
site
pretty
of the
cool.
season finale. Are you good with that?
Oh yeah, I'm totally good with that.
I'm tempered. And let me tell
We
you
can
why
get there easily
yeah, we can get
for
there.
selfish reasons. I like it.
We can totally get there. In fact, my baby girl has been lobbying heavily to go to Nashville. So I don't, she's well aware of the fact that we can get there. I'm guessing my bride knows the fact that we can get there pretty easily as well. I think the only one not in favor of this is me. So, but I guess I'm okay with it. I'd like to see what the track is like because I don't think the track today produces great racing.
Mm-mm. It's a
Um,
show.
yeah, it is, but I don't
Yeah,
I don't think it puts on great racing. So
yeah,
Laguna's a good watch. It's a good track. It's purpose built. I mean, it's so to me, I
oh
like
yeah.
something like that as the final. As the finale.
But it
I don't
sounded like
care
that
for
was
it being
moving
in the
up.
West,
It sounded like it was
right?
moving up in the season in order to get rid of
In the
that big
spring.
break.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah. Which is fine, but and IndyCar has to do something next year because of the Olympics. So,
yeah.
so there's a lot of things coming together there, right? Titans are building a new stadium, the Olympics are coming. Maybe there's a need to shake up the season finale, moving it to closer to the Midwest, which to me, I get that there's IndyCar routes in the West Coast, but to me, moving it a little bit closer to the Midwest, which is right, really the heartland for Indy,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion,
Yeah,
makes total sense. And Nashville's a great city for that kind of stuff.
yeah. I agree. I think I think it's a good thing. I think it'll be great. You'd like to see that the series goes down to the last race in order to decide the championship. So, we're not going to see that this year, I don't believe. That would be nice, but that's out of everyone's control. It's just how the series works and how uh, the teams drive and the drivers do their best to score the most points. So, I did see all that. I heard all that. I've got no objection to anything that they're doing. I'm not sure I'd like to be at the Oval, but that's TBD.
But this makes you want to attend?
I think so. If it's the last race of the year and it's going into a championship battle that'll be decided on the streets, I like it. There's a
makes
lot
it a
of
different story,
uncertainty
yeah.
with the course and what could happen. So that element is maybe a negative to make it the final one, just because you don't know what you're going to get, right? You don't know
Right.
how it's going to play out. But if you can put together a good street course that is, not super tight in certain areas that causes a lot of red flags, yellow flags, whatever you want to call them these days, then for sure, then let's do it. I'm all for it.
Yeah. All right. Who you got?
Who do I got for
dark
Nashville?
horse.
All right. So pole, I've got Colton Herta doing pole. I've got for the win, I've got Lundgaard.
Oh,
I got Lundgaard
really?
winning this thing.
Nice pick. You're
Yes,
wrong.
I do. I think. And then my dark horse is going to be the guy that's you're wearing a shirt, Felix Rosenquist.
Stop.
That's it. That's what it is today.
I'll start with my dark horse because my dark horse is FR6, Felix Rosenquist.
Oh, look at that.
That is my dark horse pick for this one.
Shirt.
The reason for wearing the shirt was 16th of 4th, and I think he was definitely in for a podium until he got chopped. I have Kirkwood on pole, and I have Herdamania 2.0 for the win. I've got an Andretti sweep of the street course. I don't have Grosjean in this. All I want to see for Grosjean is a finish.
That'll be
4 wheels on the car.
That'll be good. Yeah. A finish, hopefully top 10, right? A top 10 finish would be really nice for him.
That'd be really nice
at this point. And as he's looking for a ride, I believe, or trying to secure his current ride.
Yeah. What looked like a sure thing is not necessarily the thing. So I just want to run through points a little bit here. I don't want to drain all this, but Palou continues to lead. He's 80 points ahead of Newgarden, who's up 1 position with Dixon slipping 1. Dixon's 120 back. McLaughlin picks up a position. He's just kind of a swap with Pato. They're tied actually, 5th and 6th with McLaughlin, and then Lundgaard drops 2 on the week after that win last week in Toronto. He moves to 9th place now. Everybody's out of it, Tim. It's to me, when you look at it, Palou's 80 points ahead of Dixon. Ahead of Newgarden. I don't see how. There's no way anybody else is coming in, and it's really just a 2-man show at this point, right? It's a battle for second.
Yeah, I would agree, 100% on that.
Yep. So, I got to bring in a YouTube comment. So last episode, the Toronto episode, I mentioned something about, I don't even know how I got on this thing, to be honest with you. And I never listened to our show, so I won't verify it, but I talked about 2nd generation drivers and, our YouTube comments, which I love. And of course, Spencer, who's more than just a YouTube commenter. He posted, Michael Andretti is the best 2nd generation driver. And he would put Herta between Unser Jr. and Rahal. So Spencer has Michael Andretti, he has Unser Jr., Colton Herta, and Graham Rahal, right? So I want to take that in 2 parts. I want to hear your opinion. The first one is, I put Unser ahead of Michael because of the championships and the wins at the Speedway, his 2 Indy 500 wins. Michael has more wins, period. There's no disputing that. He's got 42 IndyCar wins. Al Jr. has 34. But like I said, 2 of those.
So you put Unser as number victories. 1?
I would put Unser ahead of Michael.
Oh, wow. And I would not. There's no way I would put
Well, you're a Michael Andretti fan, though.
I am. But I think just from I'm thinking back, and I guess if you're an Andretti fan, you're not an Unser fan, right? That was like the big rivals back then. So, but
Unser drove for Penske. Hello.
I know, and and I agree with the 500 wins. That's big, right? But continue. I want to hear the rest of this.
No, so you agree with Spencer? Michael
I agree
Andretti
with
has
Spencer
you would
that
put Michael Andretti
Michael,
best.
yes, was a better driver than Unser Jr.
Yeah. As far as Colton Herta being ahead of Graham, I'll stay with Graham being higher than Colton Herta. I think that Graham hands down is a better racer than Colton Herta. Better racer, hands down, right? Colton's not necessarily wrecky, but we have seen some bad choices over the last couple of years that have thrown away solid wins. I'm talking Nashville, right? Win in hand, dominating, threw it away, wasn't even under pressure.
Yeah, but think about this. At the end of Colton's, let's say at the end of career now, would that
Colton's going to have more wins? He's got them now. He's got more wins now.
Yeah, but I'm just saying over time, though, I think Herta's going to, I don't want to say blow Ray Hall away. I just think over time, he's going to really bubble up way above where Graham is.
Maybe I'll revisit it then. But right now, I still think that Graham's a better racer. Better pure racer, smarter on track. I really do.
I would say he's smarter on track, but he doesn't have better results, I wouldn't say, than Herta. Like, I think Herta's
in a better car.
Well, fine. He's in a better car, but he doesn't drive for his father either. So it's like, it's
kind of. He did.
So you think Graham on the open market could go get a ride somewhere and perform better than being on his father's team?
I think if Graham were in Andretti Autosport right now, I don't think we'd be talking about Kyle Kirkwood as much as we talk about Kyle Kirkwood. I think it would be the Colton and Graham show. And who else is on that team? I really do.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
in equal cars.
I can't say I agree with you on that for sure.
I know you don't.
I think
it's the only reason why we're having this conversation.
Spencer has it is accurate and correct in my opinion. So I'm going with Spencer. Sorry, Dan.
It's all right. Let us know what you think. Am I wrong? That's fine. Is Timmy wrong? That's normal. Tell us your picks. Tell us what you think in the comments section on YouTube or tweet at us. We love the social media engagement. We try to respond to all of it if we possibly can. All the links are in the show notes, both the pod and the YouTube. Don't forget to visit IndyCar1909.com. Great stuff to read there. That's all I got, Timmy.
Same here. Good to see you again.
Good to see you, man.
Good to see Iowa race. It was a great race, and look forward to Nashville coming up on August 6th.
Yeah, 2 weeks. So thanks, everybody. Catch you after Nashville.